We've just done a fruity walk, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second.
London has been given the first ever national park city status.
London, the world's first national park city.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow, what an amazing city.
So, greener,
healthier,
and wilder.
Even if you haven't been able to join events as part of the walking festival, I do hope you've been able to take in the sights and the sounds of spring and May in London, the blossom, the greens, the birds, the fledgling chicks. I've had fledgling sparrows and starlings on my bird feeder, which has been wonderful. So it's just such a glorious time of year. It's just been such a joy to have people on these walks who are often walking by themselves and haven't necessarily found their communities in London, and that's a big part of it. We've just come back from a lovely fruity walk around Marylebone, which was led by Ranger Divya. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
When did you become a ranger? Tell us about your ranger story.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love the stuff that you're all doing, so really happy to be here. I started being a ranger in 2020/2021. And it all started for me with the 100 Voices, I wouldn't call it a festival, 100 Voices webinar that was happening in July 2020. I heard from the grapevine that this event was happening. And at the time, it's quite a funny story actually, because I was taking my driving license in Spain. I'm Spanish. And we were all in lockdown. I went back there. And in the summer, I had nothing better to do than literally finally get my driving license after, I don't know, how old was I? Like 25, 26? So I went to driving camp in a place, in a little village in Spain. And I remember seeing so many fig trees and so many different fruit trees around there that it just was fascinating. All I could think about was, is there a map that somebody in this village has? Because I want free snacks. This is amazing. There's literally nothing else for me to do here, rather than these weird, driving classes and super pandemic kind of environment. And through the grapevine, I saw that there was this 100 Voices event going on. And I thought about giving my piece and giving what I thought about. And I had been so inspired by seeing so many different fruit trees in this village that I thought, wouldn't London be incredible if all of the parks had different orchards that people could just go, and they knew that there would be fig trees that they could pick, or apples or pears. So I participated in the 100 Voices webinar, and I said, I think that London should have fruity parks all around. And the ball kept rolling from there. A lot of people told me about amazing fruit trees in London. And then, of course, there was such an amazing community with that event that London National Park City had done, that all I wanted to was to keep involved. And so I immediately applied for the next cohort of rangers. And it's sort of it's all history from then.
That's wonderful. I do remember the 100 Voices, and I remember your talk specifically. And it was one of those online events where we couldn't all meet up in person, and that was so much of the kind of early ranger movement was kind of hampered by lockdown, but at the same time we were able to do things in our local spaces, and we got to know each other through video screens, and we got through it so that when we did eventually meet in person, it was even more wonderful. But yes, we've just been on the fruity walk this morning, and it was fascinating for me. I mean, I've never really acknowledged that there's olive trees here and fig trees over here. So tell us about the walk, where we started and ended, what we saw, maybe just a quick summary.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this was my first walk around this neighborhood, but with the walking festival, I thought that I'd plan something a little bit more special that would start and end in the London National Park City space, the hub. And so we walked through Cavendish Square and then through Paddington Street Gardens, all the way up until Crawford Street. And essentially we saw some ginkgo trees, a female ginkgo tree. We saw a lot of Chanticleer pears, and then we ended up with a row of about 20 olive trees in Crawford Street. So it was a really sweet walk. Usually in my walks, I touch upon a lot more different fruit trees, but in this one, I thought, let's just keep it really focused, exploring green urban spaces like those parks, and also these like 3 species, and really focus on that. So, yeah, it's been a fascinating day, and people were really engaged. We had somebody from China, and she was giving some incredible like folklore around how the ginkgo tree was used and the seeds. And yeah, everyone was really engaged, which was really wonderful.
And what do you hope that people get out of these walks? What do you want them to come away with?
I think the key concept about fruity walks is that there's so many fruit trees and so much nature around you. And London is such a busy place. Everyone's just running around from place A to point B, and no one kind of just looks up and stops for a second and notices that an array of different trees and vegetation is growing around them. So the key thing about the project really, and for today, is that people get to realize that there is a lot more fruit than they had envisioned before, and that they take that feeling with them in all of the different walks that they do. Even on their commute, maybe they get to see the city in a little bit of a different way and start resonating with the trees, but also maybe they see like a fig tree or an avocado tree. We'll speak more about avocados and lemons later, but maybe they see an amazing fruit tree coming out of somebody's garden, and that could be a really great point of engaging with their local neighborhood, engaging with their local community. Yeah. I think that was my phone. I just like somehow fell.
That's okay.
Oopsie doopsie. The foundations of Fruity Walks were back in 2020. So you became part of the Ranger Network. How has Fruity Walks evolved? Can you tell us about your journey over the last few years?
Yeah, definitely. So Fruity Walks essentially is a project about finding unusual fruit trees and stories in London. Because did you know that there is an avocado tree and a lemon tree and a pomegranate tree fruiting in London, and like big massive avocados, big massive lemons? Like at the beginning with Fruity Walks, I was mind blown with just finding an apple and a pear. I come from Spain, so I never envisioned that. Like, I don't know why I thought this, but I just thought that nothing would grow in London. Like all of these things would grow in farms or like in the outskirts. But I was like, why is there an apple in a park? Like, I was completely mind blown, and I thought it was the best thing in the entire world. And so back then in 2020, I started an Instagram, and there I would post about all of these amazing fruit trees that I would find. At the beginning, like a plum tree was my biggest finding, but then people started commenting and saying, oh, have you seen the lemon, or have you seen the avocado? And then I was walking and I saw a huge pomegranate tree or a grapefruit tree. And so initially the Instagram was about just finding like the novelty of finding all of these amazing trees and posting about it so that other people could also find them, and kind of to inspire them, to pay more attention in their commute and their walk to work or just every day. But then the project evolved because I was thinking, okay, it's incredible to see this avocado, but like, who planted this? Why is this tree here? And I really was fascinated with the stories behind these trees and getting to know, why they were here. And so I started knocking on people's doors and asking them, hi, tell me more about your tree. And it was fascinating because I thought they would be a little bit like private about it or wouldn't want me to be engaging about it, but most of the reactions were so encouraging, and they would be so proud for somebody to come and tell them, oh, I love your tree, like, tell me more about it. And so many of these stories were stories of immigration, people that arrived here in the Windrush generation 60, 50 years ago, and they brought with them something familiar with them. And for example, this beautiful story about a grapefruit near Battersea Park. This woman, she was really elderly. she was telling me that she brought with her just a couple of seeds and planted them in her garden, and it grew, and it was a beautiful grapefruit tree. And every time when she would feel like this tree grew enormously, it's like a huge canopy full of grapefruits, really sweet as well. And she would tell me that during COVID, she would just, you couldn't go anywhere, so she would just sit underneath her grapefruit tree and like look up, and it felt like the stars, like all the grapefruits were like the stars. And just really beautiful stories of how it connected them with their countries. Another story around a person from Cyprus that brought with them a lemon tree, and it grew and it stuck, and amazing sweet lemons growing on it. So it's more and more that you start realizing that the influence and the power of having something familiar with you. And London is such a transient city, a city that holds so many different people from so many different nationalities, myself included, coming from Spain. And it's a different way to connect with your roots that you probably wouldn't have thought about. And I think that's what I've come to realize. Like at the beginning with this project, I thought, I really resonate with finding fruit trees. Like it felt like a bit of a hunt, like a tree hunt or an activity, the novelty about it. But then my family, they're farmers back in Spain. And it only clicked like a couple of years ago when I was like, oh, like I don't go back to the farm anymore. I'm so disconnected to that back in Spain. But seeing these fruit trees in the city, that makes me remember where I came from.
That's wonderful. So if someone wanted to like plant a tree, you know, so many of us live in flats and spaces where we don't have anywhere outdoors to plant things. Could someone perhaps have something small growing on their windowsill? How accessible is it to grow a fruity tree? And what would you recommend if someone wanted to plant something really small?
Yeah, I think experimenting with growing like an avocado at home is really fun. Or honestly, any sort of seed from the supermarket that you have might attach and grow. I would take the question and tell you a little bit about the orchard planting that we did in Bermondsey, because I completely agree. There's so much only that you can grow in your house, and that is probably never going to be a tree big enough to bear fruit. But I was involved in this amazing project a couple of years ago in Bermondsey, where the rural estate community wanted to plant an orchard in their green areas next to the estate. This is a really built-up estate. Not many people have area to green, any green area around them. And they all got together and they wanted to create something really special. And I was really lucky to be involved in the project and see it all come into fruition. And I'd like to say that people have a lot more power than they think. Like if you come together with your neighborhood and you've identified a space that could be a good place for planting, please know that the people have the power to engage with their local community and propose these things, because that's exactly what happened. They had land, which is public land, and they proposed this to the council. The council loved the idea. Councils have a target of trees that they have to plant every year. So it was like a really win-win situation. And the community got to decide what trees they wanted to plant them, how. And then the council was like, perfect, we'll get the trees. We'll do a planting day out of this. We'll engage with the schools and the local neighborhood around and make it happen. Obviously, like, the community has to be an incredibly big force to keep this going, because with a lot of these things, you need to push it to the extreme to make things happen. But it did happen, and it happened in 2 different orchards across Bermondsey, and I've witnessed that firsthand. And it's really giving me a lot of empowerment to speak with different communities and really go out, and if people have an idea, they just need to go in together and just see what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it. Let's make a plan. Let's propose it to the councillors. And I mean, 9 out of 10, well, maybe 7 out of 10 times, you'd be surprised of how willing they are to do something, because everybody wants to green London, and that's just a win-win for both parties, really.
And it sounds like if you have a big enough community, you're going to have people who are experts in the space, but you don't necessarily have to be an expert. And you can learn so much from people who are kind of spearheading the initial movement, and you don't have to come in with a specific skill set. Do you think you can learn on the job? Did you learn, or did you teach and educate others?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really big thing that I always caveat in my fruity walks, that I am not an expert. I haven't studied horticulture or botanology or like even biology at school kind of thing. I'm an engineer. I work in sustainability and renewable energy. And despite having no background, I was just fascinated by our urban landscape, urban parks, everything that grows in the city. And just having the interest to see and to learn is already an incredibly good and valid first step. Mm-hmm. And in the planting, we were happy. We were really lucky in the planting that we had people from the Orchard Project. So I think also when you want to do a community orchard, there is so many different associations that will also come in and help, such as the Orchard Project, for example, but also just like the tree counselors within the borough that you're at, and they will provide that experience and that knowledge, and then it's all about seeing how much you can learn and apply it elsewhere. But I hope people can understand that they're never alone with these things. There's so many incredible organizations and charities that are more than willing to provide resources and education, for everybody.
Absolutely. Outside of hands-on volunteering, what can we do to protect these fruit trees in day-to-day life? You know, if you're working all during the week and you've got busy weekends, are there other things you can perhaps do from home, like campaigning, local councillors, for example?
Yeah, there's a whole array of things that you can do. I would say the first thing is yourself being interactive with the fruit trees in your community, because a lot of times when there's fruit trees in parks or in streets, there's a general, I wouldn't say fear, but there's a general space between the tree and people, because people will think, oh, it's a fruit tree in the street, maybe it's poisonous, or like, could I take it? Like, is this legal? Will I be penalized by taking an apple or a plum that's growing in the street or in the park? So I think the first step is always engage with it, get to know the tree that's nearest to you, get to see it grow, because that's also going to enable you to protect the tree as well. I think a lot of times people don't realize these amazing trees are next to them, and therefore if there's vandalism or something happens, you're not as connected to it. So the first thing I would say is choose a tree or choose an area that is really close to you and get really up close and personal with these trees, because that's going to create a really big bond, and that's then going to enable you to have a better understanding of what the tree needs, and start talking with your neighbors, start talking with maybe the counselors if it needs more watering, or just start with yourself, rally up with your community or your neighbor, even just having a topic of conversation with your neighbors around, oh, have you seen that tree in the park? Mm-hmm. That's already, I think, more worth it than signing petitions sometimes, getting all of the community to be a bigger part of it. Interesting.
I noticed some of the trees that we saw had tags with QR codes on them, right? Because I know for a lot of people, myself included, I'm not very good at tree identification. I think the olive trees are a pretty well recognised one, right? And you were talking about the symbology of olive trees and olive branches and what have you, but some are maybe a bit more complex. So if they don't all have QR codes, how can we best identify a tree and what its purpose is?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm still working on my tree identification for sure. For somebody that's pretty obsessed with fruit trees, I still find it quite difficult to identify them. So I would say a really accessible way actually is through, let's make use of all of this AI in our phones. There's a lot of apps actually that give you, if you take a picture of the tree, they'll give you an understanding of what that tree might be. So I think that's a really accessible way for everybody to have that in. in their hand. I think even with some phones, you just take a picture and sometimes you can like automatically get it through the picture.
Like Google image
Exactly.
search, yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's the most accessible way. I'm a big fan of labels. So we were talking in the walk that all of the street trees are planted by the council and they will come from nurseries, and these nurseries will have little tags in each of the trees. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for some of these tags within the trees, because that will give you what type of species it is, what cultivars, and I find that incredibly useful myself. Then it's all about like I would say focus on one tree and like don't try to be an expert in all of the trees. And I think maybe that's why I like decided to be quite niche with fruit trees, because that in itself is like, it's a lot. But just try and identify, like focus on apples or focus on plums, and you'll start noticing them more and more. And yeah, it's the long game. I have no quick answer to this because it is a lifelong learning. Even for me, 5 years after, I am still like using my apps sometime of like, what is this? Is this an apple or a pear? Or
Yeah.
So yeah, just focus on one, and once you start focusing on one, you'll start noticing so much. I would recommend figs as well. For example, figs are they're really easy to identify. They're really different to some other trees. And just start with that. Just start with one and go easy on yourself.
Yeah, that's super interesting about tree identification. As a imperfect bird watcher, I would say you start to have your favourites, but it does just snowball and you start to see themes and things that interest you, like types of leaf or fruit coming out of it. So yeah, I definitely relate to that on a bird level.
Yeah, definitely. I started using Merlin app, and I am in love with this.
I love Merlin. Yeah,
it's so good. I actually forgot to say, but one of the key things about fruit tree identification is just look into the tree and see if you see like a ball-shaped type of fruit, and start with that and sort of like spring onwards. That's as easy as it gets. Just focus on that.
What does the future of Fruity Walks look like? What have you got coming up over the next few months? Anything you want to highlight that people can get involved in?
I'll be having a couple more walks throughout the year, but my main focus is going to be on creating a map. And I've been really fortunate that London National Park City has given me one of the grants that they were offering to develop this project. And it's really going to be full force on that. I want to do a series of maps of different neighborhoods so that people can do sort of like a 1 hour loop by themselves and see green spaces, see some fruit trees, see some orchards. And yeah, that's definitely going to be the next focus for the next about 3 months or so. I'll be starting with one of Bermondsey, Lambeth, Shoreditch, maybe one of here too, and highlight the London National Park City hub and the olive trees that we've just seen today. So that's my immediate action. I can't wait to have something physical, because it's always been sort of through the Instagram or in real life Fruity Walks, but I'm really excited about this map project. The life goal is to be able to do a book and be able to tell a little bit more about the stories behind all of these trees, and go a little bit deeper into the immigration stories, because they bring everything to life, and it's such in direct correspondence with London itself.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful story and really reflects the diversity of the city. So that's wonderful. And you've got some film content coming out over the next couple of months, next few weeks?
We're presenting the Urban Nature Film Festival in June, and it's a movie that Michael kindly did with Paul Wood and myself, just roaming throughout the city and talking about trees and walking, so that should be good fun. Yeah.
Perfect. So how can we stay in touch with everything that you're doing? Socials, obviously, mailing lists?
Yeah, definitely. I think the best way is through Instagram at Fruity Walks, and yeah, that's the key one. Hopefully I'll be working on a website soon, but on Instagram, that's the main place you can find me.
Perfect. And the question we have to ask everyone, what is your favourite walk in London?
Oh my God, that is a really difficult question. It's like choosing between all your kids. I will say that recently my favorite walk has been a walk that I do around Lambeth. So starting in the Garden Museum and going around the Black Prince Street and all the way over to the Imperial War Museum. There's so many incredible things there. Like, I mean, I wanted to keep this a bit of a secret, but an avocado tree, okay, full of avocados, lemon trees, and then just persimmon trees, a full-on orchard. It is incredible. Yeah, that's my walk of the year, I would say.
Wow, how wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to do the Fruity Walk with you and to have you on the podcast. And looking forward to see that map. We have so many maps around the visitor centre, and everyone loves having these physical copies. So I'm excited to see that come out. And let's see what happens over the course of the year. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow. What an amazing city.
So, greener,
healthier,
And wilder.